Can you imagine hearing those words from your own father? Get out. I don't want a broken daughter in my house anymore. He said it so coldly, so finally, as he shoved me out the front door into a freezing November rain. I was 15, no coat, no phone, just my school backpack, soaked through in seconds, with algebra homework and a half-eaten granola bar inside. That night, I walked alone for miles in the dark, wondering if I'd even make it to morning. I'm Ava Thompson. I'm 28 now, sitting in my little apartment in Seattle, watching rain streak down the window like it always does this time of year. There's a letter on my kitchen table, shaky handwriting on thin nursing home paper. After 13 years of silence, my father wants to see me. He says he's dying. He says he's sorry. Funny how rain still takes me right back to that night, November 12, 2012. I remember coming home from school like it was any other Thursday. Backpack over one shoulder, thinking about the history test I'd aced and the new band poster I wanted to buy with my birthday money. Normal 15-year-old thoughts. I had no idea that in less than 2 hours, I'd be locked out, shivering, with nowhere to go. The moment I stepped through the door, I felt it. Something was wrong. My father, Daniel, was standing in the living room, face red, fists clenched. My older sister Becca, stood behind him, arms crossed, looking perfectly heartbroken, concerned, the picture of a loving big sister who'd just discovered something terrible about her little sister. But I caught it, the tiny flicker in her eyes. Satisfaction. Our stepmom, Susan, hovered in the kitchen doorway, silent as always. That was her thing, watching bad things happen and saying nothing. Dad didn't even let me put my backpack down. He exploded, screaming that I'd been stealing from his wallet for months, buying pills, hiding them in my room, talking to dealers. Becca had found the evidence. He said, cash in my dresser, empty pill bottles in my closet, text messages on a burner phone. I tried to explain. I swear I did. I'd never touched his money, never seen those pills, but the words stuck in my throat because I could see it. He wasn't listening. His mind was already made up. Becca had spent the whole day preparing him, feeding him lies like candy. She stood there with tears in her eyes, telling him how hard she'd tried to help me, how she didn't want to tell him, but she couldn't watch her little sister destroy herself anymore. It was a perfect performance, and he believed every word. He grabbed my arm, hard enough to leave marks, and dragged me to the door. Threw my backpack at my chest so hard I stumbled, opened the door, rain pouring down in sheets, thunder rumbling. He looked me in the eyes and said it again. Get out. I don't need a broken daughter. He pushed me onto the porch. The door slammed, the deadbolt clicked. And just like that, I was homeless. I stood on that porch for what felt like forever. Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10. The rain was coming down so hard it stung my face. I kept staring at the door, waiting for it to open again, waiting for someone to yell, Ava, come back. It was all a mistake. Nobody came. My phone was still on my desk inside. I wasn't allowed to grab anything except the backpack I was clutching like a life raft. Inside it, textbooks, a notebook, a granola bar, and absolutely nothing that would help me survive a night in November rain. No jacket, no money, no quarters for a payphone, even if I could find one. I was 15, straight A student, zero survival skills. So I started walking. My body just moved on autopilot toward the only place I knew felt safe, Grandma Eleanor's house. She lived about 8 miles away, out past the highway. Mom's mom, the one who always looked at me like I was worth something. 8 miles doesn't sound far in a car, when you're walking in canvas sneakers that are already soaked, with no coat, and the temperature dropping fast. It might as well be 80. The road was dark and slick. Cars splashed past without slowing down. I was just a shadow on the shoulder, something nobody wanted to look at too closely. After the first mile, my clothes were heavy with water, clinging to my skin. After the second mile, my fingers went numb. After the third, my teeth were chattering so hard I thought they might crack. But I kept going, one numb step at a time. What else could I do? Go back and beg Dad to believe me? He'd already decided I was the problem. The thing about hypothermia is you don't realize it's happening until it's almost too late. Your body starts shutting down. Your brain gets foggy. Suddenly, sitting down for just a minute sounds like the best idea in the world. I made it maybe 5 miles before my legs gave out. There was a guardrail up ahead. I thought I'd just lean against it for a second, catch my breath, then keep going. Grandma's house was only 3 more miles. I could do it. My knees buckled before I reached it. The gravel came up fast. Everything went black. 3 hours after my father threw me out. His phone rang. The voice on the other end was calm. Professional. Officer Ramirez with the county sheriff's office. There's been an incident, sir. Your daughter, Ava, was found unconscious on Highway 9. Early stage hypothermia. She's being transported to Evergreen General. And one more thing, we've notified Child Protective Services. A caseworker is already at the hospital. We'll need you to come down and bring whatever evidence you have about why a 15-year-old was walking alone in a storm with no coat and no phone. Dad's face went white as a sheet. I know because the hospital staff told me later. They said he looked like a man watching his world crumble in slow motion. Becca was standing right next to him when the call came. For the first time, her perfect mask slipped, just a flicker. But it was enough. The woman who found me wasn't just some random driver heading home. Her name was Linda Morales. She'd spent 32 years with Child Protective Services before retiring. She knew exactly what she was looking at when her headlights caught a teenage girl collapsed on the roadside, soaked. Alone, no coat, no one looking for her. She pulled over so fast her tires screeched. She had an emergency blanket in her trunk, old habit from her CPS days. Wrapped me up like a burrito while she called 911. Stayed with me until the ambulance arrived. Followed the ambulance to the hospital. And when I woke up hours later, she was still there. She might have saved my life. Not just from the cold, but because she was exactly the right person at the exact right moment. I remember opening my eyes to fluorescent lights. The smell of antiseptic, a scratchy blanket tucked around me. Linda was sitting beside my bed, silver hair in a neat bun. Reading glasses on, a paperback closed in her lap. She looked like someone's grandma, but her eyes were sharp. She handed me a cup of hospital coffee. "This is terrible," she said with a small smile. "But it's warm." I laughed, actually laughed, and for the first time in hours. Maybe years, I felt a tiny spark of something like hope. She leaned in. "Now, sweetheart, why don't you tell me why a 15-year-old was walking alone on Highway 9 in a storm with nothing but a backpack?" So I told her everything. The accusations, the planted evidence, the years of Becca's quiet sabotage. Things I'd never told anyone because no one had ever really listened. Linda just nodded, never interrupted, never doubted. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said the 7 words that changed everything. "I believe you, and I'm going to help you prove it." To really understand why Becca did what she did, why she went so far as to destroy my life, I need to take you back to when everything first started falling apart. Our mom, Claire, died in 2007. Cancer. I was 11. Becca was 15. One day we had a mom who made chocolate chip pancakes on weekends and braided my hair for school pictures. The next day, we were standing by her hospital bed, watching the machines slow down until they finally stopped. Dad, Daniel, didn't handle it well. He basically shut down, went to work, came home, sat in his recliner, stared at the wall. The house could have burned down around him, and I'm not sure he would have noticed. So Becca stepped up. At 15, she became the one who cooked dinner, signed permission slips, made sure I got to school on time. She became the responsible one, the mature one, the daughter Dad could lean on. And he praised her constantly. "What would I do without you, Becca? You're the glue holding this family together." He never once asked how she was handling Mom's death. He just expected her to handle everything else. What nobody saw, what Dad absolutely refused to see, was what happened when he wasn't looking. Becca wasn't just stepping up. She was building her own little kingdom. And in that kingdom, I was the one who needed to be kept in her place. It started small. Homework that mysteriously disappeared the night before it was due. Permission slips for field trips that never made it to my teachers. My favorite sweater shrunk in the wash. Oops. Must have been an accident. Birthday party invitations I sent out that my friends never received. Messages from classmates that got lost. She'd go to my teachers with this sad, concerned expression and tell them I was struggling after Mom died, that I was acting out at home, that they should be patient with me. She painted a picture of a troubled kid, and everyone believed her because she was so mature, so caring. I tried to tell Dad once. sat him down and explained that Becca was sabotaging me, that she was lying about me to everyone. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You're just jealous of your sister," he said. "She's trying to help this family. You should be grateful." After that, I learned to stay small, stay quiet, survive until I could get out. 2 years after Mom died, Dad remarried. Susan was nice enough at first. She smiled a lot, made casseroles, tried to fit in. Becca immediately started calling her Mom. It was strategic, I think, a way to cement her position as the good daughter. I couldn't do it. I couldn't call this stranger Mom when my real mom had only been gone 2 years. It wasn't about Susan, it was about my heart not being ready. But that quiet refusal cost me. From that day on, Susan treated me like an outsider in my own home. She and Becca formed their own little club, and I wasn't invited. By the time I was 15, the lines were clear. Becca was the golden child, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. I was the troubled one, the difficult one, the daughter who just couldn't get it together. And then there was the money. Mom had set up trust funds for both of us before she died. $50,000 each, accessible when we turned 18. It wasn't a fortune, but it was something, a safety net. A gift from a mother who knew she wouldn't be there to help us start our adult lives. Becca turned 18 in 2010 and got her share right away. It was gone in less than a year. Flashy clothes, expensive gifts for her boyfriend Marcus, trips, parties. By the time I was kicked out 2 years later, she was broke, her trust fund was a memory, and Marcus was always talking about his next big scheme, his next investment that was definitely going to make them rich. My $50,000 was still sitting there, untouchable until 2015, unless something happened to me first. Mom's trust had a clause, a protection mechanism, probably something she put in thinking it would help us. If either daughter was declared legally incompetent or institutionalized before age 21, her share would be managed by a court-appointed family guardian until she recovered. Becca and Marcus figured out what that meant. If I got institutionalized for substance abuse, say, because Dad found pills and cash and evidence of drug dealing in my room, then someone responsible would need to manage my trust fund. Someone trustworthy, someone like a concerned older sister who only wanted what was best for me. $50,000. That's what I was worth to Becca. That's the price she put on her own sister. The week before she destroyed my life, she put her plan in motion. Small cash withdrawals from Dad's account using his ATM card. She knew his PIN because she handled all the household bills. Marcus's empty prescription bottles, saved from his anxiety meds. A prepaid burner phone bought at a gas station, loaded with fake text messages. On the morning of November 12th, while I was eating cereal and thinking about my history test, Becca slipped into my room and planted everything. Cash in my dresser, pills in my closet, a note with the burner phone number as proof of my dealer contact. Then she went to Dad with tears in her eyes and told him his youngest daughter had a terrible secret. He believed every word. Why wouldn't he? Becca had spent 8 years being the perfect daughter, the responsible one, the one who never lied. And I had spent 8 years being painted as the troubled one before I even knew the portrait existed. By the time I walked through that front door after school, my trial was already over. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was exile. That's how I ended up on Highway 9 in November rain, walking toward Grandma Eleanor's house like it was the only light left in the world. But Becca had made one tiny mistake in her perfect plan. She didn't account for Linda Morales. I don't remember much about collapsing, just the gravel biting into my palms. Then nothing, like someone switched off the lights in my head. What I do remember is waking up. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the sharp smell of antiseptic mixed with that industrial floor cleaner. A scratchy hospital blanket tucked around me like I was something fragile, something worth protecting. I hadn't felt that way in years. Linda Morales was still sitting there, exactly where she'd been when I fell asleep. She smiled that gentle, knowing smile. "Welcome back, sweetheart. You gave us a little scare." While I was unconscious, things had started moving. The hospital called the police because a minor had been found in a dangerous situation. The police tried to reach my next of kin, Dad. And when Officer Ramirez delivered the news, apparently Dad and Becca showed up at the hospital around 10:30 that night. I was awake by then, sitting up in bed with Linda beside me, also in the room. a CPS caseworker named Carla Vega, and a uniformed officer. Not exactly the welcome committee Dad was expecting. He looked shaken, not guilty yet, just annoyed and confused, like this was all a big inconvenience. Becca stood right behind him. And for the first time in my life, I saw her look nervous. The smirk she'd worn when I left the house was gone. They expected to find a scared, apologetic girl ready to confess and beg to come home. Instead, they found a room full of professionals asking very pointed questions. Why was a 15-year-old wandering alone in dangerous weather? Why no coat, no phone, no one looking for her? The power had shifted, and Becca felt it. She tried to run her usual script: concerned older sister, troubled younger sibling, we just want what's best for her. But Carla Vega wasn't buying it. 30 years in social work had given her a finely tuned radar for deception. And Becca was setting off every alarm. Then Grandma Eleanor arrived. She was 68, 5'2" of pure determination. She lived 40 minutes away and made it in 25. I heard her before I saw her, that sharp click of sensible shoes coming down the hallway like a storm warning. She swept into the room like a small silver-haired hurricane and positioned herself between me and Dad. That's my granddaughter, she announced to everyone. What has this fool done now? Dad tried to explain, started talking about the stealing, the pills, the evidence. Grandma listened for about 30 seconds before holding up one hand. Daniel, she said, her voice ice cold, I've known you for 15 years. And you've never been the sharpest tool in the shed. But this might be your dumbest moment yet. You threw a child into a storm based on what? Pills that appeared out of nowhere? Cash that magically materialized? Did you even ask her side of the story? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Grandma nodded. That's what I thought. Here's the thing about Grandma Eleanor, she didn't just love me. She fought for me. That night, while I sat exhausted and hypothermic in a hospital bed, she went to war. She demanded an emergency custody hearing, right there. Right then. It was nearly midnight, but she didn't care. She called a family court judge she'd known for years, someone from her old PTA days, and got him on the phone. The hospital social worker presented the facts: a minor child expelled into dangerous weather. No investigation before expulsion, no attempt to verify accusations. Child found unconscious with early-stage hypothermia. Father's evidence unexamined by any professional. By 12:45 a.m., I had a new home. Emergency temporary guardianship was granted to Grandma Eleanor, effective immediately. Dad was ordered to have no contact with me until a full investigation was completed. CPS would be interviewing everyone, me, Becca, Dad, Susan, and they'd be taking a very close look at that so-called evidence. As we walked out of the hospital, Dad tried one more time. He reached toward me, started to say something. Grandma stepped between us without breaking stride. You don't get to touch her, she said. You don't get to talk to her. You had your chance to be her father. And you threw it away, literally threw it into a storm. Now we're leaving. She guided me out to her old Subaru, the one she'd been driving since before I was born, helped me into the passenger seat. Tucked another blanket around me even though the heater was blasting. I looked at her with tears streaming down my face. Grandma, I don't even have clean clothes. I don't have anything. She patted my hand, her eyes fierce and gentle at the same time. Honey, you have me, and I have a Target card. Tomorrow we shop. Tonight you eat soup and sleep in a bed where nobody's going to throw you out. Ever. That was the first night of my new life. Grandma Eleanor's house wasn't big or fancy. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that always smelled like coffee and fresh bread. But it was warm, safe. Nobody there was plotting against me. She enrolled me in a new school where no one knew my history. I made real friends, people who liked me for me, not because they'd been fed a story about who I was supposed to be. I started seeing a counselor, finally unpacking years of manipulation I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Grandma had 3 rules: breakfast at 8, homework before TV, and absolutely no nonsense before her second cup of coffee. Chaos could wait until after the meatloaf. Best advice I ever got. Meanwhile, the CPS investigation turned Dad's world upside down. Carla Vega wasn't just checking boxes, she was digging. Every receipt, every timestamp, every thread, and the more she pulled, the more Becca's perfect story unraveled. It started with the cash. $800 found in my dresser drawer. Dad said it proved I'd been stealing for months. Open and shut, right? Except Carla checked the bank records. That 800 came from a single ATM withdrawal on November 12th, the same day I was kicked out. The bank provided surveillance footage. Timestamp: 2:47 p.m. The person on camera wasn't me. It was Becca, clear as day, same jacket, same ponytail, her blue SUV parked in the background with a dent in the bumper from when she backed into a mailbox the summer before. My alibi was airtight. At 2:47 p.m., I was in 5th period biology. Learning about cell division. School attendance records showed me present until 3:20. My teacher remembered me asking a question about mitosis. I couldn't have made that withdrawal. Physically impossible. Then the pills. The bottles planted in my closet were traced to a prescription for Marcus's anxiety meds. He'd reported them, stolen, from his car, filed a police report 3 days after I was kicked out. Why wait? Because they weren't stolen. Becca gave them to him to plant. Then he reported them missing later to cover their tracks and get a refill. The burner phone was the real smoking gun. Purchased 4 days earlier at a gas station 2 miles from Becca's gym. Security footage showed a young woman in yoga pants, ponytail, paying cash, her blue SUV visible through the window. Same car, same dent. As the investigation deepened, an uglier picture emerged. Carla started looking at Dad's bank statements over the past 2 years. Someone had been forging checks, small amounts at first, 50 here, 100 there, but it added up to almost $20,000. The signatures were close but not quite right. The money went to accounts linked to Marcus's business ventures. Becca hadn't just framed me. She'd been robbing Dad blind for years. And she needed me gone before anyone noticed. Grandma Eleanor wasn't about to let this slide. She hired an old family friend, attorney Paul Grayson, who'd practiced family law for 30 years. When she explained what happened, his face went hard. He filed for permanent guardianship immediately and started building a civil suit against Becca for fraud. Emotional distress, whatever he could make stick. He also made sure my trust fund was locked down with extra oversight until I turned 18. The court date was set for April 2013. But 1 month before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Marcus Reed got arrested in Oregon. Federal agents picked him up for running the same investment scam in 3 states, over $500,000 stolen from people who trusted him. He was facing serious time, maybe 10 years. His lawyer made a call the next day. Marcus was ready to cooperate, ready to make a deal, ready to tell the truth about everything, including his girlfriend Becca and what she'd done to her little sister. Marcus wasn't loyal. The moment prosecutors offered a reduced sentence, he talked. His written statement was 14 pages long. He confirmed it all. The plan to frame me was Becca's idea from the start. She'd been stealing from Dad for years, funneling money to Marcus for his scams. When the thefts started getting harder to hide, she needed a scapegoat. That scapegoat was me. She figured I was perfect, the troubled younger sister, the one nobody would believe. She told Marcus that getting me institutionalized would solve 2 problems. She'd have someone to blame for the missing money, and she'd get access to my trust fund as my guardian. $50,000. He wrote down the planning sessions, the pill bottles he provided, the burner phone she bought, the morning she planted the evidence in my room, even included text messages between them from the days leading up to November 12th. Messages that proved this wasn't impulsive. It was calculated, cold. His final line stayed with me. Becca said her sister was a nobody who wouldn't fight back. She was wrong. April 2013, family court. I'd been living with Grandma for 5 months by then. I'd gained weight, the good kind, from regular meals and actual sleep. I'd made honor roll. I'd started to remember what it felt like to be a normal teenager. But walking into that courtroom, I felt 15 again, scared and small, wondering if anyone would really believe me. Grandma squeezed my hand. Paul Grayson nodded reassuringly. Linda Morales was there in the gallery, wearing the same sharp eyes she'd had that night on the highway. The hearing was supposed to be about guardianship, simple stuff, making Grandma's temporary custody permanent, establishing support obligations. But it turned into something much bigger. The district attorney had gotten involved, with Marcus's confession and the mountain of evidence Carla had compiled. This wasn't just family court anymore. Criminal charges were on the table. Becca sat on the other side with a public defender she'd met an hour before. She looked smaller than I remembered, paler, The confident golden child who'd controlled our household for a decade now looked like exactly what she was, a scared young woman whose lies had finally caught up. Dad sat alone in the gallery. Susan had refused to come. He looked like he'd aged 20 years in 6 months. The evidence was presented systematically, devastatingly. ATM footage, school attendance records, pharmacy records, security footage from the gas station, 2 years of forged checks totaling $20,000, and Marcus's confession. Read into the record word by word. When Becca took the stand, she tried to maintain her story, confused, innocent, deeply concerned about her troubled sister. The prosecutor wasn't having it. "Ms. Thompson," she said, showing the ATM photo. "Is this you at the bank on November 12th at 2:47 p.m.? Becca swallowed, looked at the image of herself. I was getting money for groceries." "Groceries?" The prosecutor nodded slowly. $800 in cash for groceries. "And you didn't mention this withdrawal to your father when you accused your sister of stealing that exact amount later the same day?" Silence. "And the location of this ATM, it's 12 miles from your sister's school. A school where records show she was present until 3:20 p.m. Can you explain how she could have made this withdrawal while sitting in biology class?" More silence. Then they called Susan. She looked like she wanted to disappear. The prosecutor asked about the morning of November 12th. Did she see anything unusual? Susan's voice was barely above a whisper. "Becca went into Ava's room around 7 a.m., said she was borrowing a hair tie. She came out empty-handed." "And anything else in the days before?" Susan closed her eyes. 2 days earlier, I overheard Becca on the phone with Marcus. She said, "Everything's in place," and then she laughed. The courtroom went still. When Dad testified, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. He had to explain why he'd expelled his 15-year-old daughter into a storm without investigating. Why he never checked the bank records. Never questioned why Becca suddenly found evidence. Never asked for my side. His voice cracked. I trusted her. She's my firstborn. She was always the responsible one." Judge Elena Ramirez had been on the bench for 25 years. She'd seen ugly custody battles, bitter families torn apart by lies and money. But even she looked disturbed. Her words cut like a blade. "Mr. Thompson, trust is not an excuse for negligence. You expelled a minor child into dangerous weather based on unverified accusations. You made no attempt to investigate. You chose one daughter over another without evidence, without reason, without basic parental judgment. That is not parenting. That is abandonment." She turned to Becca. "Your actions were calculated and premeditated. You manipulated your father, endangered your sister, and committed fraud for financial gain. The court will not tolerate it." Becca's sentence came down hard. Fraud, theft, filing false statements to law enforcement, child endangerment. Her public defender negotiated a plea to avoid a full trial, 2 years suspended sentence, 5 years probation, 200 hours community service, full restitution of all stolen funds, the $20,000 from Dad, plus the $800 she planted. A permanent restraining order. She couldn't contact me directly or indirectly. If she came within 500 feet, she'd go straight to jail. And the felony conviction would follow her forever. No jobs handling money, no positions of trust, no working with children. The golden child had a scarlet letter now. Dad lost guardianship rights permanently. He was ordered to pay for my therapy and education until I turned 21. The community found out everything. Small towns talk. Friends stopped calling. Neighbors looked away. His church group suddenly had scheduling conflicts. Susan filed for divorce 6 weeks later. The judge turned to me at the end. "Miss Thompson, you've shown remarkable resilience in the face of extraordinary cruelty. The court grants full permanent custody to your grandmother, Eleanor Hayes. Your trust fund remains protected until you turn 18. And I sincerely hope you have a better future than your past." I wanted to say something clever. Instead, I just whispered, "Thank you." As we walked out of the courthouse, Dad tried one last time to approach me. "Sweetheart." Grandma stepped between us. Her voice was ice. "You don't get to call her that anymore. You lost that right when you threw her into a storm." We kept walking. I didn't look back. The sun was shining that day. April in Washington can be unpredictable. But that afternoon was warm and bright, full of promise. Some stories end in courtrooms. Some stories have one more quiet chapter that makes all the difference. 13 years later, October 2024, I'm 28 now. Living in my cozy apartment in Seattle with a view of the harbor. Morning light pours in through big windows. I chose this place myself. I'm a marketing manager at a tech startup. Good team, good salary, good benefits. Every promotion felt like another step away from who I used to be. I'm engaged to Ethan Brooks, a pediatric nurse who spilled coffee on me at a charity event 2 years ago. Apologized for 10 minutes straight. Then made me laugh so hard I forgot to be mad. We're getting married next spring. Life is good, really, genuinely good. Then the letter arrived. It came to Grandma Eleanor's house. She's 80 now, still in the same little house. Still following her 3 rules. She called me one afternoon. Voice careful and neutral. The way she gets when she doesn't want to sway my decision. I drove down that weekend. The envelope was plain white. Cheap paper, shaky handwriting I barely recognized. Return address, Cedar Grove Nursing Home. About an hour from where I grew up. I opened it at Grandma's kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold in my hands. Dear Ava, I know I don't deserve to ask anything of you. I know you have every reason to throw this away without reading it. But I'm asking anyway because I don't have much time left. I'm here at Cedar Grove now. Had a stroke 2 years ago. Left side doesn't work well anymore. Susan is long gone. Took half of everything and moved to California with some guy she met online. The house is sold. There's nothing left of the life I thought I had. Rebecca came to see me last week. I wouldn't let her in. I can't look at her. I can't hear her voice without remembering what I did because of her lies. You're the only one I want to see. The only one I need to apologize to. I was your father, and I failed you in the worst way a parent can. I believed lies over truth. I chose comfort over justice. I threw you away like you were nothing. I know you owe me nothing. But if you can find it in your heart to come, just once, I'd like to tell you I'm sorry in person before it's too late. Your father, Daniel. I sat there for a long time. The coffee got cold. Afternoon light shifted across the table. Grandma didn't say anything. She just waited, like she always had. 13 years of silence. 13 years of building a life without him. Did I owe him anything? No. But I thought about Mom, the kind of person she raised me to be before she died. I thought about breaking cycles instead of carrying them. I decided to go, not for him, for me. The nursing home smelled like disinfectant trying to cover up endings. Dad's room was small, single bed, one window, a TV playing something nobody was watching. He looked 20 years older than his 72 years. The stroke had left him crumpled and gray. He cried when I walked in. Couldn't speak for the first few minutes, just sat there with tears running down his face while I stood by the door, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Eventually he found his voice. Apologized over and over, stumbling over words the stroke had stolen from him. Said he'd been blind, stupid, cruel. Said losing me was the worst thing he'd ever done. Said he thought about that November night every single day. Every time it rained. I let him finish, didn't interrupt, didn't comfort him either. Then I said what I'd come to say. I forgive you. His face crumpled with relief. But I want you to understand what that means. I pulled a chair close and sat down, making sure he was looking at me. Forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. It means I'm choosing not to carry this anger anymore. It's heavy, and I'm done letting you take up space in my heart. You threw me into a storm because you believed a lie. Not because the evidence was overwhelming, because it was easier. Becca made you feel good about yourself. And I reminded you of everything you'd lost when Mom died. You chose the comfortable lie over your own daughter. I built my entire life without you. I put myself through college. I built a career. I'm marrying a man who would never throw me out in a drizzle. Let alone a storm. I'm happy, but you need to live with what you did. That's not my burden anymore. It's yours. He nodded, tears still streaming. I know, he managed. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. I needed to see you one last time. I stayed another 20 minutes. We didn't talk much. I told him about my job, my apartment, Ethan, surface things, safe things. He listened like it was the most important conversation of his life. When I got up to leave, he reached out with his good hand, not grabbing, just reaching. I let him touch my fingers for a moment, then walked out. In the hallway, a nurse stopped me. You're his daughter, right? The younger one? I nodded. She glanced back at his room. Your sister came by last week. He refused to see her. Told us to send her away. Said he couldn't look at her face anymore without seeing what she'd done. After all those years of being the rejected one, the throwaway daughter, my father had finally rejected Becca, the golden child, the favorite, the one he'd believed without question. Too late to matter, too late to heal anything. But something shifted in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, I'd already given that. Something more like completion, like the last page of a very long book finally turning. I walked out into October sunshine. Same month, different weather, different life. 13 years ago, October meant rain and betrayal and hypothermia. Now it means falling leaves, pumpkin spice, and the anniversary of when my real life began. Some storms don't destroy you, they redirect you. That November night, I lost a house, but I found my home. I lost a father who didn't deserve me, and I found a grandmother who did. I lost a sister who never loved me, and I found myself. Ethan was waiting when I got back to Seattle. Takeout on the counter, a bad movie queued up. That patient look he gets when he knows I need space to process. How'd it go? He asked. I dropped my keys and leaned into him. I think I'm finally done. I think I can let it go now. He wrapped his arms around me and didn't ask any more questions. That's Ethan. He knows when to hold space. Next spring, we're having the wedding at Grandma's house. Small ceremony, close friends, good food. Grandma's already planning the menu. Meatloaf is definitely on the list. Somewhere out there, Becca is working night shifts and wondering where her life went wrong. Dad is in a nursing home alone with his regrets. Susan is in California pretending none of us existed. But me? I'm in Seattle. I've got a career I earned. A partner who loves me. A grandmother who will probably outlive us all through sheer stubbornness. And yes, I finally got that band poster properly framed, the one I wanted to buy with my allowance the week before everything fell apart. I found it online a few years ago. Paid way too much. Hung it in my office where I can see it every day. Some things are worth waiting for. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, drop a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, what time it is there, what you're feeling. I see every single one. More stories like this are waiting for you. Click one now. See you in the next one.